How do we set healthy boundaries without feeling guilty? And how do we know when to decline an opportunity and when to say yes to a calculated risk that could then lead to growth? Hello and welcome to Women Talk. You're here with me, Nadia Heng, your host. Now, for many of us women, whether it's at home, at work, or with friends, we frequently find ourselves saying yes to things that we actually would rather say no to. A lot of this might stem from a sense of responsibility, a sense of guilt, or maybe just not wanting to disappoint the people around us. But before we start talking about how to set healthy boundaries, let's begin by understanding why we find it so hard to say no sometimes. Here in the studio today, I am so thrilled to have with us, we've got Melissa Indot, nervous system life coach, singer, songwriter, big fan. And of course, we're also delighted to welcome Dato' Azlin Ahmad Shaharbi, lawyer and of course advocate for women's entrepreneurship. Ladies, welcome to the studio.
Thank you so much, Nadia.
Well, this is something that personally, I'm not ashamed to admit, I definitely struggle with saying no.
Yeah.
And I'm going to pose this question to the both of you. Dato' Azlin, maybe you can go first and tell us why you think it is that as women, many of us struggle to just simply say no in work settings, you know, at home, and even in our personal lives.
Yeah, okay. Firstly, thank you, Nadia, for having me on this show. And I think this is a huge topic. And I think it's one that affects all of us, actually women and men too. All right. And I think for women, it's because, you know, we are always like seen as the good ones, always assisting people, always expected to, you know, be accommodating and all that. So I think it's just something that needs to be changed. And I think programs like this, shows like this, is good because it actually reminds everyone that that's not what we're supposed to do or supposed to feel, right? Because this, you know, saying, not being able to say no because you're scared that the people won't accept you, you want to please people, you want to maintain the harmony or whatever it is, you know, I think this needs to change and it can be changed slowly. You know, and I think I hope, you know, such conversations that we're having today, right, will remind people. You see, because we all do it all the time. We do it all the time. But it's just so natural to us to be like that, that sometimes we just don't know what we're doing. So I think today I'd like to, you know, say that it's not about saying no, saying yes, saying not saying anything at all, or doing something. It's actually, you know, whatever it is, that you must know why you're doing it. Is that good for you? Does that align with whatever you want to do? Right? You know, I think that's most important. And
I love that. I also love that you mentioned the word people pleaser because that's something that definitely strikes a chord, I'm sure, with many of our viewers as well.
Yes.
And that's a big reason many of us say yes to just be accepted, to just be liked without thinking about what aligns with what we want.
Yeah.
Melissa, what's your take on it?
Well, first of all, I agree with everything that Dato' Azlin said. I mean, you know, the fear of being judged, the fear of being rejected and abandoned, the people-pleasing. And I think also our society conditions women to be nurturers. Actually, that's what we are naturally. We nurture and we like to keep the people in our communities safe. We're incredible community builders. And so playing safe and keeping the peace is something that we prioritize. But what we're not aware of is it must never be at the cost of our own individuality. And a little bit like that oxygen mask analogy. You know, you've got to give your oxygen to yourself first to keep your people safe. You've got to make sure that you're saying no to the right things to keep yourself safe so that you can be around long enough to keep your community safe too. But it's knowing the difference. It's discerning when is the right thing to say no to. And that's something that programs like this can help teach women.
I couldn't agree more. And we'll actually get more into that later on. I'm curious, when did you start to realize that saying yes, Melissa, was no longer serving you and you decided, you know what, I need to start setting healthy boundaries?
Yeah, that's a great question. Let me see. Okay, I would say my journey with that began in my 30s, but I got a lot surer about it in my 40s. And the indication was in how I felt about the people I loved and cared about around me, including the people I worked with. And what I mean by that is, when I started to feel very resentful or unseen or unappreciated by the people I loved and cared about, that's when I realized my yes to them wasn't actually serving me. My yes to them equaled me abandoning what was important to me first. So I would prioritize them at the cost of my own mental and emotional health. So just to recap on that, how I knew that my yeses were no longer serving myself and other people was based on my feelings. I was feeling very resentful, very irritable around the people that I loved and cared about.
I think that's something so many of us can relate to. And it also stops you from showing up as the version of yourself that you want to be able, how you want to show up for the people you love. Dato' Azlin, in the work setting, in the corporate world, I feel like as women, when you say no, very often this also gets perceived as being really assertive or being too aggressive. How are we supposed to navigate this and still, maybe lean into our feminine energy at the same time?
Yeah, but it's really something that shouldn't be happening in 2026, because like when you're in a room, in a boardroom, right, and then all the men are giving their ideas about all sorts of things, and when a woman says something, it's like she's a troublemaker. It's perceived that way. So I think that should not be the mindset at all these days. But it's happening not just in Malaysia. Actually, if you read books like Lean In and all that, you will see that it's actually something that happens even in the United States. So I think it's important, all right, to be confident about yourself, all right. And if you want to assert something, if you have the knowledge, you have the information, you have the data, you know what you're talking about, right? There's nothing wrong in being assertive. In fact, you should, rather than keeping quiet because I'm afraid to say something because people think I'm a troublemaker. But a lot of women think that. They feel that. They're scared. They don't have the courage to do that, although they are very, very capable. Okay, so I think if you have the knowledge and you have the information and data, you'll be more confident. And then when you communicate whatever you want to say, communicate it professionally, and it'll be okay. And I think every woman should do that and start doing that.
Melissa, do you have a moment in your life where by not saying no, it's actually led to some pretty big consequences?
I set a standard of saying yes to people and taking on things, doing things, until I couldn't handle it anymore. But I didn't want to disappoint the people I'd been saying yes to. And so I ended up going down the route of addiction in order to cope, to keep going, and also cope with abandoning myself. Like almost starting to hate myself because it's like I was doing stuff for the people I love, but I was also starting to hate myself for not caring about myself first. It's a very complex journey, but basically, yes, that's when I started to realize that saying yes was actually a danger to myself, my health, my mental health, my emotional health.
Thank you so much, Melissa, for sharing that. I think that really demonstrates the gravity of how important it is for us as women to actually know when to say no. Anyway, we'll be right back after this, so don't go anywhere. We're going to take a short break. Welcome back to Women Talk. I'm Nadia Heng, and today we're talking all about why it's important to know how to say no. There are moments when, of course, saying no is not necessarily the right answer. Sometimes it's actually important to step out of our comfort zone, to take calculated risks, because all of this could also lead to tremendous growth. The challenge, though, is discerning between when is it important to say no and when should we take these calculated risks, because it can also lead to burnout. Well, luckily for me, I have two amazing guests in the studio, and we're going to start off with you, Melissa. In fact, I want to find out both of your perspectives on this one. As I've just mentioned, saying no is not always the right answer. So how do you know when is the perfect time to say no to something, and when you should actually go ahead and take a chance on an opportunity?
That's a really great question, and it's a very individual one, and it's something that I had to learn over time. For me, it's learning not to make decisions from my mind. Not doing what I think I should be doing, because often what I think I should be doing is fitting into what society or, you know, my partner, my children, I don't have children, but my partner, my team, the people I'm working with want from me on a subconscious level. I've had to learn to connect with my body, and especially as women, we have very, very strong connection to our body, and our body knows the truth. So for me, I listen to my gut. My gut will immediately feel like a yes. And so I go for it. Even if my mind is telling me no, my body is telling me yes. So in short, I learn to connect with my body and take the answer from my body first and not do what I think. The second layer to that, because at the end of the day, we never really know whether that decision is the right decision. So what we can do is know that whatever decision we make, we have the capacity to make that decision the right one.
I love that.
Don't worry about making the right decision. Just make the decision right.
All right. Well, Dato' Aslan, what's your take?
No, I'll just continue on that one from the business perspective.
Of course.
From the business, you know, a calculated risk. A calculated risk is not guessing. You know, it's an informed decision, right? Where you have to do a lot of work actually to get to this informed decision making process. Right, so you know, in business, it's not, again, you know, it's not like, you know, saying no, saying yes, or whatever it is. It's knowing what you want, right? And in business, a lot of planning needs to be done, right? Because you need to have your vision, you know, how to you know, develop and grow your company, right? So you need to do a lot of homework and groundwork on you know, market opportunities, on resources, on your timing, on financial impacts, and all that, right? So, you know, all that comes into, you know, making that informed decision. So at the end of the day, you know, it may be saying yes, saying no, saying whatever, right? But still, it depends on that, you know, those factors that you need, you know, to really plan on.
So when it comes to the business world and making a calculated risk, it's very much dependent on these strategic factors that you're talking about.
Yeah.
To recap, what would some of those strategic factors be that we should take into consideration?
Market opportunities, the financial impacts, the resources, your timing, you know, and all that, you know, and actually the problem with a lot of not women entrepreneurs, I would say entrepreneurs.
All entrepreneurs.
In general, is that they lack the planning. They lack the planning because not many people like that step of, you know, before they start anything, sit down quietly and plan and do a business plan. Not many people do that. So they get into it and, you know, they just figure it out along the way. And that's not good. And that's when you get exposed to making a lot of wrong decisions. You know, in fact, if I can say a little bit more about, you know, if you are not informed, and you are presented with a business opportunity, you know, how would you know how to decide whether that business opportunity is good for you or not? So a lot of times, entrepreneurs are trapped into this. They see this business opportunity and they're like, oh, this is a good business opportunity. You know, I will say yes to everything because I don't want this to be a deal breaker. And this happens all the time. Yeah. And for me as a lawyer, where I do a lot of work on increasing legal literacy for women entrepreneurs, this happens all the time. They will say yes to all sorts of things because they say if I even say one thing, it'll be a deal breaker.
Speaking of risks, Melissa, I'm going to throw it back to you again and ask you, when was the last time that you felt like, you know, you made a decision that something might have felt kind of risky, but actually turned out to be a huge opportunity and, you know, really worked in your favor?
Well, I love this whole conversation, the combination between, you know, logic and what is practical, the calculated risk, and also the intuition, right? Yeah. So that question for me is when I gave up my 9-to-5 job, my very reliable, safe job that paid me a salary every month and kept me safe and comfortable. And I threw that out the window because I was like, I'm going to commit my life to creating music. And I transitioned from that into the wellness space. Now, it made no sense because there was a big risk. Yeah. But I followed my intuition and I did my research. I had a plan,
You're
and I
good.
had money that I put aside. So we need a bit of both, wouldn't you say?
Yeah,
Aslan? I'm
balance.
sure Nadia, you agree. A little bit of
Absolutely.
both. So that happened, and funnily enough, I kind of got sucked back a little bit into this kind of 9 to 5, or I should say corporate or very structured way of living, because I left the music business and I went into the wellness space, but very much sort of following that structured route. And I feel like I lost my excitement and my joie de vivre, my joy for life, my creative flow. And so the timing is perfect for this, because I've just made another big transition. I've stepped away from that back into the music business again, fully, but marrying the two things I love, which is music and wellness. And that is kind of embodying exactly what we're talking about today. It's having the plan, having the structure, but also just allowing yourself to fall and surrender into what is possible.
By the way, speaking of music, a little birdie told me as well that Dato' Aslan, you play the saxophone.
I tried to play the saxophone.
We should have brought one on the set. We could have a whole session. But with that being said, hold that thought. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after the break. Welcome back to Women Talk. You're here with me, Nadia Heng, your host, and here in the studio is Melissa Indot and Dato' Aslan Ahmad. Thank you for joining us on the show, ladies. Now, we were talking earlier about understanding why a lot of us tend to not know how to say no to things. And we've also explored a little bit about the importance of making decisions, you know, learning when to say no to something and when to take calculated risks. But that's really only part of the journey. The rest of it is actually about practicality. How do we actually put this into our everyday lives? Now, before we jump into our next question, Dato' Aslan, I know you had something to share with us earlier. Please, pray tell.
Yeah, I just wanted to continue to what Melissa was saying just now, you know, about the, saying yes or no, right? Because it impacted me in my life. Actually, when I started my career, right, I came back from studies in England, you know, and my parents wanted me to join the civil service. I mean, at that time, you know, I mean, if you join the civil service, it's deemed as, a stable job, and it's like all parents want their children to join the civil service. But I've always been very rebellious, I think, you know, and I wanted to set up my own firm. Although I didn't know anybody, right? I didn't have any money, you know, but I thought, I want to do this. I want to set up my own firm so that I can dictate, you know, what I want to do in my life. Right, and so I did that, and I told myself actually at the point, okay, I mean, it's not making your parents happy, but never mind, stick to it, you know, set up the firm, and in the event that you fail, right, you're still young, so pick yourself up and you know, try something else then, right, but try this now. All right, so Alhamdulillah, the firm is already 36 years old now.
That's
all right,
amazing.
36 years old, and actually, comparison between if you're working 9 to 5 and if you've got your own firm, I think although a lot of people would say that having your own outfit is easy. A lot of people like to say that. They say, "Oh, this is easy. You can work when you want to work," and you know,
You end up working 24 hours when it's your own
yeah,
firm.
but
Yes.
yeah.
But look how far you've come, you know, as they say, the rest is history. And it
History,
all
yeah.
came from you making that
Decision.
calculated risk.
Yeah, and saying no.
Saying
to
no
my parents.
to your parents and taking a chance
Yes,
on
that's
yourself.
right.
That is such an incredible story. Well, Melissa, I want to ask you this. What advice do you have for our viewers out there, especially for women who struggle with guilt when it comes to saying no? I know that you've been through this journey yourself. What advice do you have?
I believe that guilt is an emotion that women are almost born with. Why do I say that? It's because our mothers, our grandmothers, our great-grandmothers have lived with guilt. The generations, our ancestors before us, so we're born with it in our DNA. And my advice would be to lean into that guilt as an opportunity to feel gratitude. Gratitude to be in a position where you hold such power in the word of saying no, and that saying no to others is the way that you say yes to yourself. And that relates back to the oxygen mask analogy. In order to be a sustainable leader in your family, in your business, in your community, you have to take care of yourself first. So every time you feel guilt, let that be not a red flag, but a green flag to start saying no to others, because it's a way that you say yes to yourself and love yourself. And that's what we need.
That's so powerful. Thank you for saying that. I'm sure that is going to touch many lives today by just hearing how you've described it. Dato' Azlin, from a business perspective, I'm sure saying no also actually makes a huge difference when it comes to the productivity, the level of focus, the long-term sustainability of a business, right? Can you expand upon just how crucial it is for employers and also for employees to learn how to say no in the work environment?
No, I think in business as in life as well, it's very important, to be able to say no, because every time you say yes to something, right, it's taking something away from you, from your time, from your energy, your space, because it's going to, you need to do something. I think it's very important to set boundaries and to be able to say no to a lot of things, so that you can concentrate and focus on what's important to you and your business.
If you could give our viewers one piece of advice on how to actually learn to say no and how to make calculated decisions, Melissa, what's your one piece of advice?
It's not as hard as you think, and that's why you just need to do it. And remembering, I would say, saying no to others is saying yes to yourself.
Dato' Azlin?
I think you need to know what you want. I think that's important. Know what you want, all right? So that when you are confident in knowing what you want, I think saying no or yes will come naturally, because you know that's is crucial to say no or yes, so that you can get what you want.
Brilliant. Ladies, this has been such a wonderful, productive session. I already feel like empowered and I feel motivated to go ahead and say no to things that I know are going to take away from my space and, of course, from my own energy. And I hope that all of you who are watching as well have enjoyed this discussion. We've learned that saying no isn't about turning people away. It's not about disappointing others. It's about making decisions with intention. And it's also about making sure that we fill our own cup up first so that we can then give our best at work to our family, to our friends and loved ones. We hope that you've enjoyed this. Thank you so much, Melissa. Thank you,
so
Dato'
much.
Azlin.
Thank you so much, Nadia.
And if you'd like to engage more with us on this topic, you can also follow us on our social platforms at Women Talk TV3 and TV3 Malaysia. I'm Nadia Heng, signing off until the next time. Bye.